Welcome back to YCF, or Your Content Factory. My name is Blake. And just remember, we're here in the studio. We're just chilling. We are the foundation of your content creation. Just remember that. That's the tagline. That's what's going to stick. We are your foundation for your content creation. So remember that. And I have here a longtime, participant in the Blue Form Media podcasting arena. I have here Kurt Campbell. Kurt, welcome, man. How you doing?
I'm good, man. Thanks so much for having me. I'm stoked to be here.
Of course. So for those of you that don't know, you're friends with Derek Legg on the Derek Legg podcast. You've actually been you and I hold the only title of what do you call it? Replacement host or fill-in host for Derek?
Yeah, whatever sounds the coolest.
I know, right? Yeah, I've done one. I think you've done one.
Yeah.
Other than that, Derek's just been plowing ahead.
Dude, that guy, I don't understand. I had him recently on my podcast and such a good episode, but I made a joke where I was like, I don't understand. Like, I think we don't have the same amount of time in a day because of just how much he grinds.
Yeah.
Like, he's insane.
Yeah, and how much he still does himself too, right?
Yeah.
I think he admits, he's like, that's what I need to level up on, is like he needs to like duplicate himself. But what he's been doing is just, the guy doesn't stop ever.
It's really cool. It's cool to see. He's got so many things going on. He's just super driven, dude.
Yeah. Yeah, he's after it. So, but yeah, Kurt, you've been a host on his podcast before. You've been on his podcast. How many podcasts have you been on around town?
Ooh, good question. Not too many, I think, to be honest. So I've been on Derek, and then I helped guest host his. I was on a podcast with one of my buddies up north, which is a podcast about fatherhood. So that was super cool. And then I host my own. So that's got a handful of episodes as well. But other than that, if I'm forgetting anyone, then that's bad on me. But I think me and Derek joked about this as well. But once you like start hosting your own podcast, you're no longer like a guest on other people's podcasts, I feel like. So
it's true. Yeah. As soon as I started this, like I've never been on anyone's.
Yeah. No one asks you anymore for some reason. They're like, he's busy.
He's got his own shit.
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool though. So you started your own. How long has it been since you've been doing yours?
Yeah, I started it just a couple months ago. So I think in June is when I released my first episodes, June or July.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice. And then how many episodes are you releasing a month? You were talking about that a minute ago.
Yep. Yeah. So just one for now.
Just one.
And the whole main reason for that, like, I'm just a big advocate for like, you don't know if something's going to work or not, or if you're going to love it or not, unless you go do it. And probably the biggest like stories we tell ourselves, or the biggest like reason people don't get started with anything, is because they just don't know, right? Like they either don't want to like pay for it, or they don't understand the softwares they use, or whatever. So they allow all these narratives to stop them from taking any action. And I'm a cheapskate. So like the whole reason that I'm only releasing one episode a month right now is because I'm doing everything myself. Like I find the guests myself. I film it myself. I host it myself. I edit it myself. I pull clips myself. All those things. So it's
a lot of work, right?
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of work, and there's a lot of systems, and we could dive into all that. Like, again, I'm just a big advocate for like, if I can help people just take one step of an action to help them get closer to their goals, like I'm all about it. And just for the sake of like anyone listening here thinking about starting a podcast, like you can do it with awesome companies like Blue Form Media and allow them to help you produce it and stuff. And that's incredible. And they're going to do, to be frank, they're going to do a way better job than you would by yourself. They do such a better job than I do by myself. But just where I'm still figuring out kind of my footing and stuff in it, like I spend probably $20 a month total.
Oh, nice.
To do my podcast, minus my time, obviously, right? Like my time, I just don't count it. Right. But yeah, it's like $20.
What would you say? So someone doing a podcast by themselves, and this is the whole point of this Content Factory podcast, right? It's like, what are the nitty gritty details of the actual processes? How is the sausage made? Right.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to see how the sausage is made.
Totally.
Right? And that's why people pay us, is like, we don't want to look in that factory. You just turn out our podcast and we'll make us look good, right?
Yep.
And that's turned into our whole business. It's supporting our whole lifestyle, right? It's our way of life. So, but yeah, how many hours a month do you spend just on one episode of your podcast? Because is it a video podcast as well?
Yeah. So I always record it as a video, but I currently don't publish it on YouTube. Okay. I could. I'm probably my bad part of how I do it right now is I'm just horrible with organization.
Right.
Like,
yeah, the processes behind it.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Yeah.
like I have the video stored and whatnot, but yeah. So I do record it as video. I do keep them, but I'm waiting to launch them all on YouTube.
Oh, sweet, nice. So you just kind of like dump them on there when the time's right.
Yep.
So what platforms are you on? We can plug it right now too. What's your podcast called? We didn't even start with that.
Yeah, shameless plug. I had to wait for the invitation, but
Yeah, that's not shameless. Now it's just a plug.
Now it's just a plug, exactly. So it's called the Built Backstory Podcast. Yeah, you can find it anywhere that you listen to your podcast. Apple and Spotify probably being the major ones, right?
The Built Back Story.
Built Backstory. So
Built
backstory,
Backstory.
one word.
Backstory is one word. Okay, yeah.
Yep. And the whole like premise behind the podcast is it kind of ties into a lot of what I was talking about earlier. I just believe that I do believe everyone's got a story to tell for sure. Right. But I also believe that there's a lot of people who their dream life is a lot closer than they think it is. And they just don't allow themselves to take intentional action to get closer there. Like so many people are looking at people on Instagram that they follow or people on YouTube and they're like, oh man, if I could just get where they are. And like they want it now without any of the work, which I get. Like if you're a lazy person, then you probably can't like afford that lifestyle, right? But there's just small bits of work that you can do that can get you there. Like,
absolutely.
I have a buddy that I interviewed on there. His name's Mike and he's a real estate investor. And he lives out in Hawaii and he's a short-term rental real estate investor expert out there. Nice. He was a firefighter on Hawaii for a number of years. He started investing and 5 years later quit his job and was financially free from his investments and just pursuing investing full-time. Like
just from little tiny steps towards that goal.
And my like focus and what I try and like really tell people is that 5 years is going to pass whether you do anything or not.
Yeah.
So you might as well do things that get you closer to the life you want to live.
Exactly.
I don't think everyone needs to build a business. I don't think everyone needs to be an entrepreneur or whatever, but I don't like excuses when it comes to like, why aren't you living your dream life? Like you can.
Yeah. What I think I said this on another podcast, but I said something to the effect, like we don't have like a rite of passage to become a man anymore, like a tribe would, like way back in the day, or like some African tribes, like you have to kill a lion or something, something dramatic. And I think today the mark of an adult, male or female, is when you take full accountability and responsibility for your life and you stop bitching, to put it frankly. Like when you can shut the fuck up and just stop bitching and take full responsibility for your life, congratulations, your rite of passage is here.
Life begins now.
Yeah, now your life can start, right?
Yep.
And so
you can't take control over it. Yeah. Like that's the whole thing. Like you're now in charge of everything. You're not letting outside things like deter you from your path or whatever. It's like things don't just happen to you anymore. They happen for you, no matter what they are, right? Good or bad.
Well said. Very well said, dude. I love that kind of stuff. That's like the one piece that's missing for a lot of people is that, get off the victim train and just take over.
Totally. And dude, that's been a big piece of my backstory. Like something that I'm a super open dude. I'm an open book. Yeah. Like I truly believe that if I can be a little bit vulnerable for people out there and that helps connect, the right people and stuff, like I'm all for it. So
yeah,
I lost my mom about 3 years ago in 2020. What's crazy about that is months before that, me and my wife got separated. So September of 2019, me and my wife got separated. In June of 2020, my mom passed away.
Ooh.
July, my divorce was finalized. And then my dad passed away earlier this year.
Oh, man.
So like going through all of that in such a short amount of time was crazy. But my whole like way to look at it was I kind of had to force myself to do this, obviously, because of that trauma.
Right.
But I just forced myself to be grateful every day. And naturally, when I just forced myself to do it, I started being really grateful, like intentionally. Yeah. I'm just like, yeah, this sucks and it's really hard and I'm going through it. But like, I'm super grateful for my family that I have around me that support me. I'm grateful for my friends. I'm grateful for a job that I could, go back to once I was, getting through all this. Like, all of that. And I truly believe that a lot of those things have like set me up to share that story in a way that hopefully can help some people out there.
Yeah.
And like now years later after, you know, specifically my divorce and my mom passing away, like I'm remarried to the love of my life, and like we have an amazing life together. It's so cool. We were married in June. Super cool. We were married the day before the 3-year anniversary of my mom passing away. So wow. There was, you can only imagine just the special moment that my mother-son dance was. Like I gave a little speech and it was really like, I planned it all out and it was really intense and it was super special. And I have a great relationship with my ex-wife. We had a son together.
Oh, nice.
And like her and my current wife like get along, and it's just so cool. I live this dope life. And like, if I just allowed those circumstances and things that are out of my control to affect me and just have this victim mentality, like I could easily just like ruin my whole life and my whole trajectory, just like not be open to anything. But like I've truly allowed myself to just be grateful, move forward. And naturally I always kind of lean back on this, but there was kind of a moment for me, especially through the divorce, where I was like, I just got to the darkest place I've ever been, and gratitude, like that I made this realization, but I had to choose to wake up the next day and like be a dad. Yeah. Like I was not going to allow myself to like shutter that responsibility. So I'm like, you know what? I got to pick myself up. I got to be a good dad tomorrow. It's like, let's go.
It's way different when someone's relying on you.
Totally.
In some way, shape, or form, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Dude, that's really well said. That's an awesome story. I share that, very similar. I don't have kids, but I have 2 divorces under my belt, and Mal kind of swooped in and saved me at the right time, and it just all worked out, and it seems almost effortless. Now, when you're with the right person, it's just like, wow, everything's just falling into place, and if we don't know what the next piece is, we know it will come around. And it's really like kind of it's kind of humbling to know that it's like that, you know, when you can get it right. And I also had to become a better person. Same with her, and you know, we met at the right time. But you said something interesting. You said you had to kind of force it, right? I think we look at that wrong. I wanted to not impose, but I want to suggest a new idea to you. But if you go to the gym and you're training your muscles to shape a certain way, are you forcing it? Like in a way, you're applying force, right? So not that, but like you're training your muscles. Yeah. Right. And your brain is a muscle. Yep. And so I think you were training it. I don't think you were forcing it.
That's a good point.
So some people are like, I can't, it's not easy. It's not coming naturally. Like you don't have to just like accept the fact that you're depressed. Yep. Now, is it hard to change like your chemical state and your mental state of mind? Sure. But you're just training that reflex. Like there's really not any reason for anyone to like be sad in the day. Cause like, what did you say earlier about where we all end up? I don't want to steal it from you.
I was saying we all end up 6 feet underground.
6 feet under, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, death wins.
Yep.
Just in case you were wondering, you will lose. Death always wins, no matter if you're old or young or sick or healthy. You're going to die. Sorry.
Newsflash.
So it's like really what makes you a winner is if you can stop and literally like smell the roses and choose to be happy. And none of us were trained that way growing up, right? I don't think you were ever taught in like an actual way to alter your mental state of mind, especially in Western society. Maybe there's like some Dalai Lama teaching out there that would teach you, if you grew up in the shadow of the Himalayas, maybe you learned that, right? But
yeah, maybe they're a little bit more grateful than we are over here. But yeah, I love how you said the training aspect of it, right? And I have an analogy that I love about that, and I think this is applicable to just people who, again, feel like they're not, like it doesn't come natural, or they're not good at something, or it's not comfortable yet, or whatever. Like there's friction, right? It's like, so I'm right-handed. So like if I throw a baseball right-handed, like I've done that since I was, a toddler, right? If I try and throw it left-handed, it's like I look like a dyslexic giraffe or something, right? Like I don't even know. Like you just can't do it. You know what I mean? So like, but guess what? Like if you practiced every day for an hour or 2 hours or whatever, you better believe that after even a week, you'd be pretty decent.
Oh, totally.
After a month, like you'd be really good. After a year, like you'd probably like throw better or the same as you could with your dominant hand. So like everything starts off that way. So like I hope that someone listening to this is just like, no, I got this. Like I've never thrown a baseball with my left hand, and then they like go try and do it. You know what I mean? Right? Like go give it a shot. But yeah, totally agree. It's like you're always gonna be bad at something until you do it, and the mindset behind that has to be. I think there's a ton of people out there who say it, but it's like you got to be okay with sucking at something before you're good at it.
Absolutely. There's this is actually a great segue into content. Right, we'll swing it back.
Yeah, sorry for the tangent.
No,
there.
tangents are welcome here, dude.
Okay.
Like this whole,
I'm wanting to jam about content, but
No, I mean, I like to bring it back to something applicable. Otherwise, we'll just tangent all day. You know, this will just be a tangerine dream.
Ooh, I like that one.
Yeah, I just came up with that. Dude.
I like that, dude. You got the one-liners on lock, dude.
Yeah. Thanks, man. No, I don't. But back to content, though, right? So what I think is awesome and why we want Kurt Campbell on is because he's got history with us, number one. But we see what you're doing, right? And that's important to us because doing is like fucking 90% of content. And I swear, really I swear a lot on this podcast.
Hey, it's your podcast, dude.
It's for emphasis.
It is.
It's for emphasis.
There are very few ways that you can emphasize something without swear words.
Yeah, well, better than the F word.
Yeah, true, exactly. That's the king of them all.
Because like if I said your shirt is red, or if I said that shirt is fucking red, that's just better.
It is. It really is.
Maybe not applicable in certain situations, but you know my point. It's just a great adjective, and it's a verb. It's an adjective. It's everything. Yeah, and I never learned it better and heard it in more interesting ways than like my first couple weeks in the Marine Corps. You know, as a Mormon kid, I'm like, oh my gosh. I heard it more like, the first 10 minutes, I heard it more than I ever heard in my life. You know, the F word only lived on like sports fields.
Yep.
You know, or if I like caught my dad alone in the garage, like fixing a car and he messed up or something.
Pinched his thumb or something.
Yeah. Yep. So I knew it was bad, but then, that shattered the moment I got off that bus at MCRD San Diego. And I was like, 10 minutes. I'm like, I think I've heard. Yeah, I like wanted to cry.
Oh, dude,
yeah, that's how naive.
hilarious.
I can just feel the bubble popping, you know?
Yep.
But yeah, it's a great word. I love descriptive words as well. So content-wise, though, Kurt is doing it, man. Because you're on, do you run another podcast with the business group you're doing? Or you're on that podcast? Or
no, so what's kind of cool, like I obviously helped like create it and pan it out and stuff that way. Like we knew, so I'm sure you're referring to the real estate investing school.
Yes, that's the one. Thank you.
So so real estate investing school, that's like my I say my day job, but it's honestly like my 24/7. Like that's my thing.
Yeah.
Right. So you can call it the COO. I'm just the everything person when it comes to real estate investing school.
So when they put podcast on the list, you were you're going to execute on that.
Yeah.
You got it going, kicked it off.
Yeah. And I mean, I got to give credit obviously to the founder of the school, Brody Fawcett, he's my buddy and we've started the school really from the ground up, but he's the brand. He's the, he's the investor. He's the guy, like we teach his content. Right.
Oh,
so
cool.
I'm there to help facilitate all that. Right.
Nice.
And it's been cool because I've always loved marketing, human psychology, all that kind of stuff. Like it's a big jam for me. So it's been cool stepping into that. And naturally, like I'm also a big like systems guy and I nerd out about like automation and the customer journey and kind of how those things intertwine. So I'm just really passionate about that stuff. But kind of back to the podcast, we knew that we already started with like a huge Instagram following. Brody did a great job like building his own personal brand and then kind of like transitioning that into a real estate investing school brand. For the first year, we didn't do any like paid advertising or content. Like it was all organic and we did really well. So naturally, like we wanted to get into the YouTube space, into the podcast space.
Beautiful.
So then that turned into like, I dove into different podcasting hosting softwares. We dove more into like equipment. We dove more into all that kind of stuff. But one of our coaches inside of the school, his name's Joe Jensen. He's actually the host of the full-length Real Estate Investing School podcast. We release 2 a week. So one of them's a full-length episode that airs every Monday. And then the second one is called a Real Deal episode. And it's a shorter one that Brody hosts where him and a guest dive into one specific deal that they've done and like get super granular into it. So
I like that.
it's a cool episode
Is that
for sure.
spread internally, like in the company? How many, do you guys have a ton of employees, or is it like internally with clients, or how does that?
Yeah,
how do you guys
great question.
distribute?
As far you're saying, as far as guests go, right?
Guests or people that consume it, like, because we've been finding a really excellent niche for companies with large payrolls or large people on payroll, right? Lots of employees or lots of clients that are signing up monthly for a service, or like a school like you guys, where we have a public facing podcast and an internal facing podcast for subscribers or for employees. So it's teaching company vision. In high school, did you ever have like Channel 1 News?
I don't know if we did actually. That's a good question.
It was like a West Coast, a Western thing. So it might have been California or not, but some school districts, signed up for that. And it was just some like kind of VH1, MTV style teen news for high school, Channel 1 News. And so they would play it with morning announcements, and then they'd play like an 8-minute news. And like some high school chicks like, yeah, there's a new song by so-and-so. Like, it's just dumb, like pop culture kind of stuff, right? To keep kids interested, but then give them some value as well of something.
Gotcha.
But it was formatted in like a news anchor kind of thing. So
that's fun. I think I remember seeing stuff like that. Like, just like an internal like way for students to communicate and give like the news and what's happening and stuff at the school, right? So,
and it was pretty broad. Yeah. But like you could basically do that within your company. So you have a public facing where you do like recruiting, you brag, you talk about the success stories, blah, blah, blah. And then you have an internal one like, hey, remember these SOPs. Here's our ethos. Remember who you are and what you stand for. And like, so-and-so did great this month and he broke the record. And it's like 10 minutes. And then they do a real public facing one. So is that's kind of your...
No, so we are just like public facing podcast. So yeah, I mean, as far as like the purpose of our podcast is, we use it for sure as a marketing tool,
right?
But definitely as like a value add tool, right?
To like the community or the industry or the market. So public facing stuff.
Yep, exactly. So anyone like, we don't just shut it to like just our students in the school. Like we obviously, like all of our students probably are a lot of primary people who listen to it.
Right.
But yeah, we get a ton of subscribers. I think like our numbers right now we usually average like 4,000 downloads a month, something like that.
Oh, dang, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's been pretty sweet.
So the moral of the story is have a niche or niche. I'm still on the fence about which one
I don't know. Where do you land?
I'm just going to call it a nosh.
A nosh? You're going to
have a nosh. Yeah, have a nosh.
I like it.
Yeah, I'm sick of saying niche or niche, and and
it sucks when you have to say a word twice just to get through.
Yeah, and then it's like divided too. It's like we're already divided as a people on so many things, and now we got to bring the Starbelly Sneeches and the Sneeches out, like niche and nosh. I'm like, no, I'm nosh.
Yep.
So
I like it.
So yeah, get niched up, and have a product to sell. And I think that's where you come along too, as far as content. You said you've created. How many courses have you personally overseen or created yourself?
Me personally, so it's kind of tough. I've been in with real estate investing school for a while now, and I mentioned to you, that's how we started. Like we started off years ago just making a course, and then the biggest feedback we got from the people who bought that course were, hey, we want some one-on-one coaching. So then
another product.
Yeah, exactly. So we built the school out, and that's a whole nother piece, right? When you bring one-on-one coaching in, like then you obviously are limited to the amount of time that you can do coaching. So that came with hiring people and other coaches and all that kind of stuff. But it's been such a cool and beautiful experience of growing and pains and all those kind of things. But before then, I worked with a couple buddies who had built some courses around, funny enough, like talking, I guess, more like meta, but it was a course teaching people how to create courses. Yeah. So super cool. And then I got another buddy who...
A course within a course.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Yeah, some inception shit going on. Yeah.
It's really funny. I nerd out over it for sure. I think that, and there's so many different ways to do it. It's just funny to see how the market around courses like has evolved and changed, and a lot of things stay the same. And it really just depends on, I always talk about how we're different at real estate investing school compared to other like programs out there,
right? Because
there's so many real estate investors and real estate coaches who want to teach, their topic to an audience, right?
Yeah.
And I think the easiest thing and what a lot of people do is, okay, let me take my brain and my knowledge and put it into a video series. So that's like the course content. And then to like sweeten up the pie, they do group coaching, right?
Yeah.
So like
mastermind.
Yep. Once a week or whatever. Like if you buy into their program, you get their course and then you get
access to me.
Yep. Access to me.
My guy. Yeah.
But the thing is like you're one of 100, 500, 1,000, like being on that call with that one person. And sure, you're still hearing from that one person. I'm not discrediting like that value. It's a huge value and it's worth a lot of money depending on who's giving you that coaching, right? Sure. I think where we, try and change and even provide more value is one-on-one coaching. Like you're going to meet one-on-one with your coach, someone who's been there before, someone who's a current real estate investor.
Someone who's vetted, right?
Exactly.
So that's interesting. So around that, like content, right? Because I guess one-on-one, that's still content. It's anything you teach is content, right? It's not always behind a camera. So I'm sure a lot of it's done over Zoom.
Yeah.
Right. And then like, do you guys have like requirements for certain hardware? Like you have to have this level of audio. You have to have this type of camera.
We probably should, to be honest.
Yeah.
But we're not that specific yet. I mean,
it's more skill set.
Yeah, everyone's got a laptop with a camera on it and stuff, and it's decent for sure.
Right.
So luckily we haven't had any complaints from students saying like my coach's audio sucks or something. So
yeah. And too, if you're paying for it, if the audio is bad or good, like I'm there for the information, right? So I mean, if it's like unreadable or garbled, like there's a point where like I'm not getting anything from this. Let me just call you on the phone. But it's nothing egregious, of course. But so you have some like restrictions too for like who can coach, it sounds like. So how many coaches do you guys?
Yeah, so we have currently seven coaches right now.
And they're just full-time every day. They just coach all day.
Yeah, I mean, granted, like I would consider like full-time, part-time, it's kind of like a hybrid deal because they're all active investors. So like
they got their own stuff going on.
Our whole thing is like we want to be the flagship for just all investors, new and experienced and whatever. So we're not here teaching you one real estate investing strategy. We have coaches who are short-term rental experts, wholesale experts, out-of-state buying experts, commercial property experts, house hacking experts, like all of these different strategies. So part of the process, and I know I'm getting more into, again, I nerd out, right? So I know I'm getting more into like the granular things of real estate investing school, but I want to like get into content marketing and stuff as well. And the
this is all part of it, right?
Yeah, totally.
Your structure, your SOP, how you do stuff, who's qualified to do stuff, because each individual on your coaching staff is plugging into a specific type of content that your market is hungry for.
Yep.
So bridging that gap, dude, you guys are like the Hogwarts of fucking real estate.
Pretty much, dude. Yeah. So that's what I was going to say is like when a new student comes in, there's an onboarding process. So they fill out a form, they tell us about their goals, tell us about, where they're currently at. We talked about this a little bit earlier about like, if you want to go live a dope life, like probably the first thing you need to do is understand where you're currently at. You know, like you need to take inventory of yourself.
Brutally honest about that, right? Yeah,
exactly. So we take all that, information, their form, everything like that, and then we assign them to their best fit coach. Like we're not just trying to throw you like, hey, here's a coach that's available. Like,
is that automated?
The form and everything is automated, but it's manual to like assign them. We have a person reviewing the form, and then we have a head coach who's one of the coaches, who assigns that student to their coach.
Nice. He's out there. Okay, that makes sense. And have you ever been like, hey, actually, someone gets assigned a coach, and then they're like, well, I've been coaching this guy for a little bit. I think he'd be better with Larry over here. Yeah. And like they kind of swap him around depending on needs or further understanding, I would imagine.
For sure. I mean,
awesome.
Everyone thinks that they're going to be perfect at it the first time and assigning a student or whatever, but people's interests change and people's goals change and people's whatever change. So naturally we have students that switch coaches while they, pivot their real estate strategy. So now they went this way and now they want to go this way. So this coach might not fit them the best. We got another coach that we can pull you into. So.
Like I have like 5. This is not real, but for example, if I had like 5 long-term rentals and I'm like, hey, I'm sick of juggling these in this way, I'm going to make them all Airbnbs, then I'd probably get a different coach.
Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
Cool.
Definitely.
Yeah, so
we can make that real for you, by the way. So
yeah, I mean that's the goal. Yeah, give me probably 6 months and we'll talk.
All right, I love it.
Yeah, we're getting the ducks in a row for something like that.
Good.
I used to do mortgages. I was a loan officer.
Oh, okay.
And so I understand the ducks in a row that I need to get.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we're not there yet.
Sure.
Right?
What's cool about that, and this might be just a plug because
plug it
for real estate investing school. That kind of same mindset. There's ways around it. So another thing that we do inside the school is every month we have a live training for the entire school. We also bring on a guest speaker every month,
right,
who's some sort of expert in the real estate space. Next week on Tuesday is when we have our guest speaker, and he's a hard money lending and creative finance expert.
Nice.
So like the same kind of, I'll say, restrictions or limitations that you have by going through traditional mortgage ventures or traditional mortgage ways, right? Like go to a bank or credit union, you pull your credit, they check your income, they, look at your debt to income ratio.
Hard money lending, right?
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So like there's different, and that's one of hundreds of ways to do it, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things we try and help people is like, let's learn how to think differently about how we can go qualify for a loan, or not even qualify. Like how can I go through a hard money process where their limitations are extremely less, strict, and people listening might be like, oh yeah, but the interest rates are way higher on that and blah, blah. And it's like, you just got to run the numbers, right? But it's like adding another tool to your tool belt. If I learn more about hard money lending, then like maybe I find a deal that makes sense on.
Yeah, maybe it doesn't make sense.
So
yeah, it's like boxers, like if you're just a one trick pony, they're easy to counter.
Mm-hmm.
It's boring to watch.
That's a good point.
But if you got a lot of moves under your belt, you look like Jackie Chan out there,
Exactly.
But dude, the more you describe this real estate school, it just sounds like Hogwarts more and more. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. It's a special place, dude. It's a magical place for sure. We haven't figured out Quidditch yet, but that's next project. So
yeah, get on that, would you? I'd like to play that sport. That seems like a high impact, high octane.
You gotta go to the LARPing places and go play, dude.
Yeah, over by up by BYU, they do that.
Do they do that?
Yeah, because I grew up in like Linden, Orem area.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and occasionally if you're driving through Provo, just look at an empty field like where there's like supposed to be like intramural sports.
Yeah, that's where
you'll see some Quidditch kids out there in their robes running
Have you
around.
ever seen, it's that movie with Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson? The Internship, I think it's what it's called. It's where they go intern at Google.
Yeah.
And they part of like their internship or whatever is they go play Quidditch. And it's hilarious, dude. Oh, gosh.
Oh, I got to watch that again.
Funny.
I haven't seen that forever.
Yeah, years, dude. That just made it like I literally just had a vivid picture in my mind of that scene.
That's awesome, dude. So yeah, all of this applies to content in the sense that your business is centered around delivering information. And that's usually like there's 4 categories for content that I like to call EEII. You put an O in there and it's like old McDonald, bro. Like EEII, EIEIO or whatever. But
I like it.
EEII, and this is what we train all of our people here as far as I can take this as broad as possible. So what type of content or what type of podcast would you like to start? What type of course would you like to do? Is it entertainment? That's the first E. Is it educational? That's the second E. And then is it inspirational? And then is it inspiration and then information?
Mm-hmm.
So those 4, and some of them are a little redundant. They do overlap depending. But, if you're offering a school or a course, that's education, that's information. And then sprinkle in some entertainment and inspiration in there and you have a great product, right? So almost every form of content has a little bit of that, right? If someone is just giving out golden information and it's super boring, it's still like, it's hard to digest, right? So you got to sprinkle in a little bit of everything on there. But it's really important to understand that like you guys have the education, right? And if you don't, you've acquired a coach who does, and then the entertainment value, I'm sure everybody puts their little flair on it.
Yeah,
right?
it's fun.
And if you can joke around about your school being like Hogwarts and Quidditch,
there you
like,
go. I
that's
know.
fine. That's great.
We need to start doing some marketing around that.
Yeah. Just play the Harry Potter music.
Exactly.
Yeah, that'd be great, dude. I'd sign up. I'd be like, man, these guys are my people.
Yep.
But then the inspiration and the information is probably hand in hand. I mean, that's probably how Brody built an Instagram following. Right?
Yeah, definitely.
So that EEII, if you want to steal that acronym out there, throw it out there, just make sure you know where you got it. It's from me. I'm sure someone else does too. They got something similar, but
it's like a royalty, right? You get 5 cents for every time someone says it.
Yeah, I should probably do something.
But you're totally right. I think Yeah, and it's been so fun looking at our content around real estate investing school, and I think about this just for like my personal stuff that I got going on as well. And I think that's a big reason why people don't get started. Again, kind of getting back to that point is like, I think people either don't feel like they're entertaining enough. They don't feel like they have like information. Like there's so many people out there who are smarter than me or doing what I want to do, but doing it better and whatever. I have another kind of like visual for that I like to talk about. So if you're someone who kind of struggles with that mindset, like this is my visual representation for you. If you have like a line graph, again, and I mean this, if you're like finding it hard to get started because you don't feel like an expert in the space with air quotes, right? If you have like a line graph, right, like an X and Y axis kind of thing, and I'm bringing it back to math class, people are probably like shuddering right now.
Preach, brother.
If one of the axes is knowledge and the other one is experience, and you have it, scaled from 0 to 10, right? Let's just call that. And then if you would put a dot somewhere on that graph for where you feel like you're at for your subject matter or your niche, whatever you want to say.
Nosh, actually.
Nosh, you're right. You're right. I missed that.
Yeah.
So let's just say, maybe you have a decent knowledge about it. Let's say you're like a 6, but you've been doing it for maybe not too many years. So like you're a 4 or something on experience wise, right? So you put a little dot right there in that graph. You draw a line from that dot to the end of the y-axis and the end of the x-axis, and it creates a box right there, right?
That's where you start.
You shade that box in right there. That's your target audience. That's all the people that could benefit from your knowledge and experience.
Yeah. People
and
from
guess what?
0 to 6.
Exactly.
Right.
And guess what? Those people don't want to pay the price of the 10 out of 10 person, because that 10 out of 10 person, it's not valuable for them to give their content away for anything less than a 10 out of 10 price.
And dude, I would even suggest that the inverse happens. Once you've gotten to the 10, you're dealing with 6 out of 10 knowledge, and you're at this level of like, you're the Dalai Lama of this shit. I think sometimes the way technology changes and how long it's been since you were down at 0 to 1, you might have been disconnected. Because like I've dealt with a lot of wealthy people, a lot of poor people, and I think sometimes the spectrum comes around full circle. Like poor people want everything for free. Can you help me out? Goodness of your heart. My story needs to be told. And then like the wealthy people do the same thing. Oh, like we want it as cheap as possible. And like, you guys can just learn from us and show us that you can value add, and then we'll all make money together. And you're like, are you, this is the same thing.
Right.
Like, and so I think like the guy from 10 to 6, he doesn't, like you said, he doesn't appeal to the 1, to the 0 or 1 guy who's just starting out.
Yep.
Maybe in like ultimate end goal aspirations, I want to be the Grant Cardone of real estate, right? But like, there's a disconnect because Grant Cardone, he's so big, he's not going to spend time with a 0 or 1 unless they pay the price of entry, which is, $40,000-$50,000, right?
Yeah, it's exactly what I'm talking about for sure.
Exactly.
It's like that, and it's true with anything,
so his
right?
box is like 10 to 6, and then that's a great analogy.
There's so many people out there, and that's true with everything, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to say that we at Real Estate Investing School are like the 6 or whatever, right? Like, what's cool is that we're one of the only, like, I haven't found another real estate investor that level that's like, I'm going to provide that one-on-one coaching to everyone, right? And teach multiple different topics. But
you guys are a conglomerate too. It's not just one person. So you guys are more like a staircase. Yeah. So you have a coach who could help me get from 0 to 3 and then 3 to 6 or whatever the metric is. Yeah. So I could move. So that's actually way more powerful than just having a one-trick pony, or like I can help you from 6 to 10 or whatever. I like that a lot.
I think the Grant Cardone comment that you said though, like that's where my brain went as well. It's like if someone like people don't want to get started because they're like, oh man, but like someone like Grant Cardone, they could get so much more value from them. And it's like, yeah, but that person who just barely wants to get started in real estate doesn't want to pay $50,000 to go learn from Grant Cardone. Like maybe they don't have it, maybe they whatever, right? So it's like, that's why there's other means and niches inside of noshes, inside of all of it, right?
Keep it alive, dude.
It's true for everything. Like you want to go teach marketing, you want to go teach, building funnels, you want to go teach content, whatever, like you can go do that. That's been my jam lately, is like with funnels and marketing and lead magnets. And
dude, we need to talk then. We need your help. Yeah. So the next step for Blueform is to make a course.
Love it.
And not just like how to podcast, like how to be a host. I think I'd sell it 2 separate ones. So I'd be like how to be your own producer or how to produce this for other people and make money like us, right? So we'd have a variety of courses to sell. Like, hey, this is how you can turn a spare bedroom in your house into like a profitable business that you do on the side, or just do it once a week. Like, because at our prices, or anybody could do with an extra $1,500 to $2,500 a month. So if you can get one person to come to your house to record a podcast, like, you could turn that into this much money. And that's like 0 to 1. Like, have you ever read the book by Peter Thiel, 0 to 1?
No, but that's on my list.
It's great for startups.
I literally have like an Amazon list or whatever it's called.
How many are on your list?
Yeah, so I have a books list, and there's like 50 of them.
Exactly.
I'm like, dude, there's not enough time.
I know, I can't catch up, man.
Right now, I'm reading a book. You would like this one. I'm reading a book called Hook Point.
Hook Point. I'm already hooked, dude.
Oh, such a good title, right? It's actually written from the same dude who wrote a book called...
Is it the Peter Pan sequel, Hook? But Hook Point.
Yeah, Hook Point. No.
He's back for an all-new adventure.
I think his tagline in the book, too, is freaking awesome. It's like, how to stand out in a 3-second world. It's so good, dude. And I think that I might, hopefully I'm not like thinking of the wrong author, but
Mouse pulling something up here.
Oh, she got it. I think it's from the same author that wrote like 0 to 1 Million Followers.
Hook Point. Supercharge your social media.
Right there.
I love that. In a 3-second world, dude, I love it.
How to stand out on 3. Dude, I freaking came up with, like, I said that off the top of my head. I remembered it. That's how, like, it stood out to me in a 3-second world. Like, it's literally selling itself.
The marketing is working, dude.
I need to build like an Amazon affiliate store, dude.
You should. That's dude, there's so much too. And like we sometimes feel this, like this imposter syndrome, where we're like, we know about all these things because there's so many ways to turn a podcast profitable, or to do XYZ, or to make your content this way and to do that. And then we have so many people telling us how we should do it, right? Because we're kind of a newer business. So we're kind of open, but we're also like learning when to close off, because, the process we have been doing is working, right? It just takes time, and we can always improve, but we have this imposter syndrome where we're like, man, we're never doing enough. And we forget to like look over our shoulder and like see where we've come from. We're like, holy shit, we're doing this. I was able to quit my sales job. When you take a $250,000 pay cut to go into your business with your wife, I didn't just do that whimsically, right?
Yeah,
like
it's a huge
numbers
decision,
are there.
man.
It was big. It was scary as shit, but we're in it now. It's like there's no way back. We're like Cortez. We burn the ships, baby. Like,
I got another book for you real quick. You
ready?
Yeah,
let me hit it. I'm right
now you got my head buzzing for it. Good to Great.
Good. Oh, I've heard about this one.
Sorry.
This one's on my lip.
Oh my gosh, I thought of Good to Great. But
that's a different book.
It's a different book.
Oh, okay.
I'm thinking.
I'm still writing down Good to Great.
That's another good book.
That's on my list as well.
And you can look this up now if you want. But it's called The Gap and the Gain.
Ah, this one's on my list as well,
dude. I would recommend
The Gap and the Gain.
I couldn't even recommend it enough that this book be the next one that you get off your list and into your hands.
Really? Because right now I'm reading a book called "Buying Back Your Time."
Oh, cool.
By Dan Martell. He did a couple of our podcasts. He did the Solid podcast and some others, but buying back your time, because we're at a phase right now where we're evaluating our time, and it's not like, we're not $100 million tech company like he's done, but it's applicable for anybody. And so just getting back our time. But the gap in the game, if you were to summarize it or give us a synopsis, what's the gap in the game?
Well, you kind of even said it earlier. So you said like you have a hard time almost like looking at how far you've come. And like you can't like look back and be, grateful to see like how far you've actually come. Like you're always looking forward, right? So, and I don't remember the tagline of this one, but maybe it doesn't have one. Oh, The High Achiever's Guide to Happiness, Confidence, and Success. It's quite a tagline. But if I would sum it up for me, I read this book during an interesting time of my life where, and I have imposter syndrome like crazy. It's really hard for me to take even some small steps. Like when I'm talking to whoever's listening, like on the podcast or whoever, about going and taking their small steps, like I'm talking to myself for sure.
Yeah.
Like I'm right there with you arm in arm. So like, let's do this together. Right.
Well, that's the thing that's why you're on here, because you're doing it.
Even at a small scale, for
dude,
sure.
You're still like, how many podcasts have you done more than the guy who hasn't started?
It's true. I mean, the statistics are that people stop after 3 episodes. So
Yeah.
I'm
You're
already
way
above
beyond
that. So
Yeah, we had a guy. Sorry to cut you off.
no,
and
you're
we'll
good.
swing back here.
Yeah.
But we had a guy, great guy, awesome. He's in the real estate world too, and fantastic. And I hope we get to do business with him. But we decided, I think when you get to a point in your business where you can decide who you work with, that's a good place to be. So you're not like, there's no need, or you're not coming from a place of lack in your business relationship. But yeah, he was like, what's my ROI? As a good real estate investor says, what's my ROI on a podcast? Well, it's fucking zero, bro. You haven't started one.
Yep, exactly.
And it's not just to set it and forget it. Like, how much are you going to show up? How much are you going to prep? Are you going to like actually study your guest and have thought out intentional questions? Or are you just going to show up? Are you going to be able to post it? Or what's the distribution like? Who's going to see it? Like, are you going to put the elbow grease and the sweat and the blood and the tears into that? You do that for 2 years, then I'll tell you your ROI. Right. But yeah, if you have a product or a service to sell attached to your niche, then the ROI gets a little more tangible. But yeah, the fact that you've started though, that's why you're on the Content Factory today.
I appreciate that.
Because you're out there. You don't have, as much as you and I have imposter syndrome, right? You're doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And
anyway.
it's fun. What I was also going to say kind of with that, I always view like a podcast as, and I think you can give it a bunch of names, but it's one of those foundational pieces. And I think especially today more than ever, it's become one of those foundational pieces for businesses and communities and all it, and coaches and whatever to build off of, right? It's that form of, I always think of it as like it's a top of funnel piece, right?
Exactly.
If you look at your top of funnel, you're up there, you're going to have paid ads, organic social media, YouTube, podcast, email marketing, all these different things that lead people down your funnel, right?
Yep.
And those top of funnel things, some people call them tofu things, top of funnel, tofu.
I like that.
Are like top of mind things.
Tofu, I like that.
But they're the things to say, like, that's why email marketing is so crucial and building your list is so crucial and all those kind of things, because it's literally the things that people remember you for. Like, how many times have you looked at Amazon and you like went to go buy something, but you didn't want to spend the money on it yet. So you like saved it. And then you like, eventually you put it in your cart, and then eventually like you finally click buy because it's just always in your mind. Like it just lives there.
That's what's creepy too about the social media. Cause you know, they're actively listening to your ads.
Yep.
Right. And we've all just accepted it, but
yeah, that's just what I mean is like, if you, your brand, your product, your service, your whatever, if you can provide value, right? The DEII stuff that you were talking about as well. Like,
thanks. Yeah.
If you can provide value and then be top of mind for people to where when they are going about their day and they have that, like it's
I gotta
part,
do that.
it's part of like luck.
Yeah.
But it's created luck, right? Because you're just like providing all this content and value so that when that person is in a moment in time where their motivation level reaches a certain point, they remember your content and they remember your thing, and then they, take the next step, whatever.
Dude, that's how we've gained every one of our clients. Every time I see this podcast, I'm like, man, I should start mine. And I'm like, I was putting it off. And then we're like, we're ready. And then like 4 or 5 months later, they're like, boom, signed up. So yeah, it's just the visibility that you get from making content. That's what this whole podcast is about, right? The Content Factory. What are the nitty gritty ways you make your sausage that puts you in front of eyeballs? I think we're at like probably 2.8 million eyeballs a month on all of our content, like across multiple brands. And that's all the social media and the podcasting and downloads and everything like that.
Man, that's incredible.
And so that's us selling the BFPN, the ESPN knockoff of the podcast network, Blueform Podcasting Network. Yeah, we're at 2.8 million a month is our how many eyeballs or earballs that we're getting,
wild.
right? So
like cool
it's
metric
growing
to like hang your hat on too, right? Like that's cool.
We didn't really know. It's kind of that imposter syndrome. Like I guess the gap in the gain is I'm going to make that actually my next book here.
Do it.
So probably Mal, make a note of that too. We'll write it on the whiteboard. But if we can order that,
hit me up when you read it.
Oh, dude. Oh, how about we just do a whole book
review
evaluation on the podcast?
I love it.
We'll do it in
just order it now. How about that?
Yeah, just order it now.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna watch
We're
you.
We're watching this in real time. Let's go.
Yeah, just hide the credit card number.
I was going to say, slow down on the credit card.
Yeah. Yeah. Kurt's good at math. Don't let him see shit. Yeah, that's great, dude. But the gap in the gain, because I'm trying to break out of that imposter syndrome. Like we are doing some legit stuff in the content space, at least in St. George. Mm-hmm. And then same with you, like if you started a podcast, even if you stopped at 3 episodes or 1 or 2, like you still did something, you started it. Mm-hmm. It's easy to pick back up. Like this gaming community stuff I've been focusing on. It's just such a great resource for teams. And like I've hired a couple people out of there. I was telling you, they've built our entire infrastructure as far as intranet and networking and speeding up our processes. Like we save so much time now just because somebody taught me how to install like a 10 gigabit network switches throughout my house and like getting better internet. So it's been super valuable, but we started this like gaming community and this top of funnel thing. It's working to bring members in just to play video games. Mm-hmm. And we're growing like crazy. And it's like, man, this isn't even like money yet. But the YouTube content and other things like that could easily be money. Mm-hmm. Merchandise, because we have good branding. So is it a lot? No. But could we get like, could we help someone out? Yeah. We've actually been able to raise like $4,000 for like another guy's computer.
Oh, that's awesome.
One of the guys playing with us, he's got this high-end computer that was on the fritz. So he's playing on this shitty gaming laptop, and he would literally have to go put his laptop in the fridge to cool it down.
Oh my gosh.
So he could spend an hour with us online. And he ended up being so valuable to the community in other ways. And then we found out he was doing that. And we're like, dude, why are you always like dropping? He's like, I got to go. I'll be back. So he'd go literally put his computer on ice.
Be gone for 30 minutes.
Yeah, and then come back. So we're like, what are you doing, bro? So we all pulled together and
that's cool.
The community, raised, and he's a vet and we've saved, quote unquote, we've helped a lot of vets with like some PTSD, suicide, including myself, right? Been in some dark places. So that community is like, I'll probably never let go of that. No matter how many times Tony Robbins tells me to fuck my hobby or whatever, right? I'm still going to do that.
Stop playing video games is a waste of time.
I'm like, dude, these guys have saved my life and we've saved theirs. So, and
that's incredible.
Yeah, to have them pay it back so much. I've talked about it on this podcast, but even that, right? The fact that we started something and we had to put it on pause with like a podcast. The community has its own podcast. The community has its own SOPs, right? Even like for a specific video game, we have our own little way of doing things. Mm-hmm. And it's like everything I've built in that community has been able to translate into this company. I'm like, oh yeah, if I can do that, that's like exactly what we're dealing with these interns. And I'm like, here you go. And then it's working. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So it's like a mirrored, they're like very much in line.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's cool to get. I mean, I think I'm also one of those people, like if I'm working on something and I get like insanely stressed and whatever, like there's sometimes there's only so often you can just like bash your head against the screen until you just got to be like, okay, I got to go for a walk. I got to clear my head, or I'm going to go to a movie with my wife, or I'm going to go play pickleball or whatever. I'm going to play video games, whatever. And it's funny because I feel like those moments when your mind can like wander is when like things can click, right? And you can realize like things intertwine and you can, allocate certain things that you've learned over here with things that you're doing over here, right?
Dude, exactly. So in this, I'll say a statement here, and I think you'll agree, but it seems like you use your hobbies as a place to recharge.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, definitely.
Do you think, have you ever gotten close to the line, or have you gone over the line where your hobbies maybe were like an escape?
Yeah, I definitely think so. Right. I think that's normal for a lot of people. Right, for sure. I think Justin Prince said something about this. I've had the privilege of hearing him speak numerous times.
Same. Love that guy.
Yeah, he's legit. And we actually had him at Real Estate Investing School as a guest speaker. Yeah. We also record all of our guest speakers, so every new student gets access to every single guest speaker that's been on our school, which is super valuable. But he said something about like, I think he just called them the 2 R's or something like that. It's like, or maybe it wasn't even the 2 R's, but it's like you're either like working in like work mode or you're like regen mode. Like those are like the 2 states that you're in, you know what I mean, for him. And I think it's actually good. I think a lot of times people can overanalyze that and be like, oh, well, like what about this and what about that? And it's like, even for me, like just don't get too granular about it. It's like when you're working, you're like focused and working on it. And I can even look at recharge as like when I sleep, I should be recharging. When I'm exercising, when I'm working out, when I'm recharging. When I'm eating, I'm recharging. When I'm doing my hobbies, like I'm not necessarily thinking about work, but it's giving me the capacity to go and perform at my best, for work kind of stuff. So.
Yeah, when you're using a hobby to enhance your life and enhance your effectiveness, that's how you know it's a great hobby, right?
Have you heard of the sharpening the axe metaphor? I'm sure you have. But like I think people talk about sharpening the saw.
Great story.
The picture that I like to like create in people's minds is if I'm like a lumberjack, which don't show this on video because I'm 6'4", 250, just built out of pure muscle.
Me too, bro. We're both. What were you?
Yeah, don't go look at the YouTube. No, but if I have an axe, right? If I'm out there and I'm chopping down a tree and I'm just like hacking at it for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, and I'm just like, and I'm thinking in my head like I can't step away from this tree because I only like if I'm stepping away from this tree, then I'm not working on cutting it down and it's just a waste of time. Yeah. But if I actually step away from the tree every so often, sharpen my axe, spend the time to actually sharpen it and making it, sharper, right? A better tool. Then I can go back to the tree. I wasn't cutting it for an hour, whatever, while I was sharpening it. But then I go back to the tree and start hacking at it. I'm creating better cuts. I'm taking better hacks at the tree. More effective, exactly. And that tree, will fall faster and more efficiently than if all I did was hammer it with a blunt axe.
Right. And then during that analogy, because we always talk about, probably people have heard that before. It's very well said. But while you're sharpening that axe, you're also probably eating some food, taking some water, sitting in the shade, and your muscles that have been, you've been exerting your muscles all morning. You've been exerting yourself. You're just taking a break.
Yes.
Your muscles recharge, your whole energy recharge, because it doesn't take a lot of energy to sharpen an axe. It takes some focus and some intention depending on the method you're doing. But I love little sharpening stones. Right? I love sharpening knives. That was one of my favorite things to do in the military when you're bored as shit. So like my knife was always sharper than everybody's. I just it's kind of calming to the mind. But yeah, there's so much more going on with that analogy. Sharpening your axe is also recharging the energy to swing the axe and so on and so forth.
I love it.
Yeah, it's such a great analogy. And so for me, I could literally be at my desk editing for all of our podcast clients for like 6-7 hours. And then go into editing a piece of content for my gaming community. And it's like something dumb about how to like set up a certain voice communications platform or set up your joysticks. And I'm doing the same task of editing, but that somehow just recharges me.
Yeah, one gives you energy.
Yeah, one gives, one takes. And so
that's how I am, which is funny. Like me and my wife talk about this a lot too. Like I'm a pretty extroverted person. Like there's definitely times where I'm like, I want to be by myself and like just do me, right?
Right.
But and I think I sometimes have like a different like definition or whatever. Like I would consider, I'm sure there's extroverts out there who this doesn't relate to, but like when I'm out there, even like doing this podcast or doing my own podcast or just meeting and jamming with people and hearing their story and their takes on life and stuff like that fuels me.
Really?
Like there's very, very few times, and it happens where like if I'm at a conference or something and like I got to engage with a lot of people that I'll like leave it and be like, oh man, I'm winded. Like I'm tired. I'm exhausted. Yeah. But there's a lot of times where I'll leave those things and I'm just rejuvenated. Like I'm ready to go freaking take on the world. Like it helps me focus and be like, I need to get my crap together and like, go do these things that I've been wanting to do for so long. So it's funny because I know a lot of people that's like, I go and talk to people and I need like a nap after. And I'm like, I go talk to people and I like love it. Like I'm eating it up.
Yeah, I'm only like that. I used to be like, I thought I was extroverted. And then you hear that like, oh, introvert and extrovert is like, does this cost you energy? Mm-hmm. Then you're probably an introvert. Mm-hmm. You could be the most outgoing person ever, but if it costs you energy, you're introverted, right? And so I was like, maybe I am an introvert because I do feel drained.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was talking about. Like, I'm sure people have different definitions where it's like, again, they're extroverted, but they go out and talk and they're like I think people have that misunderstanding of like an extrovert means they're just really good at being outgoing and talking to people. And
if you're shy, you're introverted.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like there's a lot of ways to measure it, but I found that like if the topic changes to something that I'm passionate about, all of a sudden I'm recharged.
Yep.
So it's like, I think there's even more layers to it where, yeah, I mean, if someone's like, hey, who's your favorite Star Wars character? I'm like, what?
They're like, let's go.
Let's go. Oh, yeah? You know?
Well, you sound like you're a big Harry Potter fan.
Oh, dude, I nerd out big. Yeah. Like fantasy and science fiction. I love it. Disney ruined Star Wars, by the way. Disney.
Tough take right there. It's a hard take.
Yeah, I still watch them.
You know what's so sad, though, to be honest? My wife is not a Potterhead at all.
Ah, dude.
I have...
Do you know your house?
Yeah,
have you ever taken the test? What are your house?
I've taken it actually multiple times just out of curiosity.
I'm going to guess.
You're going to guess? All right.
You do like math. You're outgoing. So you're either Hufflepuff or Ravenclaw. I'm going to say you're Ravenclaw, though.
You know, interestingly enough, the very first time I took the test years ago, I was a Gryffindor. And then the second time I took it, like years later, I was Ravenclaw.
After a divorce, you went Ravenclaw.
It might have been. I actually am thinking of when I took the test. It's a good question.
I growing up, I took it and I was a Gryffindor.
Yeah.
And I took it.
I kept trying to take it and get Slytherin, but it just never happened.
I'm a Slytherin.
I wanted it, dude, so bad. Do you ever follow? Sorry, I don't even know. You can cut this out if you want as well.
No, leave this shit in.
Have you ever follow the Super Carlin brothers on YouTube?
Yeah, I love them.
I love those dudes.
What do they say? Hey, brother.
Exactly.
Yeah, excellent piece of content.
They do so
talking
good.
about content. They do great. They know their audience. They know their niche, and they just know like every single inch. I didn't know there was that much lore.
So much lore.
Yeah, like I thought I knew a lot, and then I like started watching their videos, and I was like, oh my gosh.
It's cool when you get into the space too. Like, and I nerd out about that stuff where it's like they get into the whole like canon and non-canon things and what's considered canon and what's not.
Yeah, between the movies and the books.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, where there's gaps. Yeah.
It's fun, dude. But I was gonna say, I didn't
know you were this deep into Potter. I said a Hogwarts reference, and you were like,
actually, I like Harry Potter stuff. So what's funny, I love, you know, self-help books and business books. What I find for myself is that I read those books better when it's like a physical copy in my hand.
Same.
It's hard for me to like listen to the audiobooks for that. But whenever I'm like whenever I'm on long like driving trips and stuff, like I actually like listening to podcasts a ton, but I also will throw on a Harry Potter audiobook and just like not think about anything and just drive.
That's interesting. So like based on what you're doing, right? Like podcast listeners, they're downloading that content to be educated or to learn, especially in the self-help industry, right? Or some entertainment. But usually, like, if someone's like running on a treadmill, I don't need to listen to a comedian and bust up laughing.
Right.
I'm trying to breathe already.
Yep.
So I want to listen to like Jocko Willink or something like that, right? If I'm pumping weights, I'll probably listen to like Arnold Schwarzenegger or, you know, I don't know, whoever's out there. Or like a business thing. Like if I'm pumping iron and I'm like getting stoked to go start my sales day as a salesman, I'm probably going to listen to like Tony Robbins or, you know, whatever.
Yep.
So there's like
for sure.
a flavor. Yeah. And then I find myself doing the same thing. I'm a big fantasy and science fiction guy on long car rides. But I force myself. I'm like, okay, the first hour I need to make some headway in this book for work. So I'll start with that while I'm the most alert. Right. You know, and then I start like, okay, I'm losing interest. I like keep checking my phone or I'm actually like falling asleep, and I'll switch it over to a science fiction whose voice is even more boring, but I'm into the story. So I'm like, what's happening next? You know,
dude, it's so funny because I'm so similar. I'm exactly like that. Like when I'm working out, like I'm listening to business podcasts and marketing podcasts and all that kind of stuff all the time. It's great. Unless I'm like lifting really heavy and I need to like get crap done. It's like then I go play my music
at the floor or whatever.
Yep, exactly. Yep.
That's so cool, man.
For sure.
There's a lot of ways to game it. You know, there's a lot of ways. Content is everywhere. I love good storytelling. That's why I like science fiction. That's why I like Harry Potter. That's why I like Lord of the Rings, blah, 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 so on and so forth. But it's the same methods that captivate, that's that EEII that brings people to something else, right? And I think you guys have been able to harness that too with the real estate investing school, and then with your own podcast, the Built Backstory. I love that, dude. We should collab more. I think
let's do it.
Let's do it, man.
I'm totally down.
Yeah,
I think you're right. I think, and this is what's funny. I thought I've been thinking a lot about just kind of in the back of my head, like the EEII stuff because it's so true, and I think especially on the like at real estate investing school in our content, like you're going to see a lot more content come out about real estate investing school. That's going to be more like entertainment based, like more, because I just think though, like it's tough because I am a believer that the entertainment factor of things like hold harder in your brain. They do. Like the things that are funny because they're reaching deeper senses in your brain and deeper like emotions, right?
Whereas and the same thing like, with the political, because it's like an emotion that's attached to it. Absolutely.
Yeah, and like I think with political stuff, like especially people who like harness that and hold on to it, it's because that's directly related to their values and like their internal. Yeah,
they're
like,
being challenged
as a person. Like that's what makes them, right?
Identity. Yeah, dude, that's right on. That's spot on.
So what I always find interesting as well is I think a lot of times people view entertainment and they're like, okay, how can I just be funny?
Yeah.
And like entertainment as a genre of content doesn't have to be just funny.
No.
Like I would encourage people to like go scroll on Netflix and go look at all the different genres. Like those are entertainment. You have action, you have suspense. Like another, I guess just to get into it, like another podcast that I'm a big nerd on is like true crime stuff podcast.
That's entertainment.
I find it so interesting.
But it's like
super
it's
entertaining.
Info as well.
Exactly.
Because like it's a historical thing that happened, or it's like it was in like your neighborhood, or you know, it was close by.
And I think the entertainment factor of it, right? Like getting even more granular is like if you have entertainment up here, you have like pieces of that make up the entertainment. And some of those are humor, but like some of those are suspense.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Some of those are action.
Or hidden information that feels like illegal to know. Like that's what you see, like 4 websites that feel illegal to know. You're like, whoa, this is entertaining and it's informational, right? But yeah, that's a great point, dude. Yeah, I think almost every piece of content has one of those EEII. But what we train our editors is that, hey, according to so if we took your brand, right, the school, the real estate investing school, and we said, okay, what's primarily their brand is like, we want to do entertainment, or sorry, we want to be educational and informative. And then probably third, it would be inspiration, and fourth would be entertaining. And so the order of it switches. So if we cut 10 clips from a 60-minute podcast, we'll like, okay, let's make sure there's like 5 or 6 of those are like educational. Let's say 2 are inspirational. And then the remaining are educational. And then we get like 1 funny one in there, right? That's the brand. Yep. So there's like a makeup, but like a comic or comedian, right? They'd be like 6 of those are just entertaining. And then maybe there's 1 or 2 educational or informational. Like, because when like Joe Rogan, he'll have a really funny episode, but then he's like, actually, the broadhead arrow, it does this when it enters the wound. It does. And then you're like glued.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think the magic, it's like if you can do all 4 of those in one piece of content, like doesn't matter the order. Yeah. It's like all 4 of them are there. That's like chef's kiss.
When you can intertwine all of those things, it's where the most value happens. Like I talked about before, like I'm big into marketing and the psychology of things. So like you can look up the 9 mental triggers, which people talk about. Like there's things like scarcity and
fear,
trust, and all those kind of things. Like community is one of them. I just finished a book recently as well called Launch by Jeff Walker. It's an older book, but super good. And he is a like product service launch expert. Like that's what the whole book is about, like how to launch your product. So he talks a lot about list building and list nurturing and launch and all that kind of stuff. But he talks about those mental triggers. And it's like, if you can create your offer and have multiple of those mental triggers, like intertwined with it, the more powerful it becomes, right? So that's why a lot of people, and you get this with a lot of launches specifically, is there's like usually a deadline. You're creating scarcity and sense of urgency. So like you've built all this proof and social trust and community and all these kind of things, and then you're like, hey, this deal is only available now until the end of the weekend. So like on Sunday, it's gone forever, right? Shit. And like until I release it again next year, whatever it might be, right? You don't even have to do that, but you create that sense of urgency where people are like, oh, I have to buy this thing, right?
Yeah, like a commemorative coin.
Yeah.
Just commemorating this one anniversary that won't ever happen for another 100 years.
Right, exactly. Right. So, you just lean on those mental triggers. And
like I want to be a part of that.
Yeah, I love all that marketing stuff. And I'm kind of like what do they call it in like movies? Like breaking the fourth wall. Is that what it is? Or fifth wall?
Yeah.
Breaking the fourth wall. Fourth wall.
When you look at
whichever,
the camera like
whichever
this.
number it is. Yeah. I think that, I don't know. I just think we live in such an age of technology and people are just, they're not dumb, right? Like people, if they want to buy your product or your service or whatever, they're probably doing a ton of research on their own about where else they could get it, not from you and whatever, right? So you need to leverage other mental triggers to help you like win that person's business. And I say that with like, I love the kind of marketing that breaks that fourth wall where I talked a little bit about like landing pages and funnels and lead magnets and stuff earlier, right? I actually really love the landing pages and the lead magnets that are just aware of themselves. Like you're not tricking anybody by saying, hey, come get this free whatever thing. All you got to do is put in your email or whatever. It's like, dude, cut it. Just like people know, like they're okay. They'll give you their email for the thing if they want it bad enough. Like you don't need to like go all crazy, I think, to sell somebody on that. It's like, if you understand who your target market is, just like create it simple. And I think it's a very humorous and entertaining piece of way of doing the content by just being aware of yourself and what you're providing to them.
Exactly. Yeah, you're cutting the bullshit car salesman out of it.
Yep.
And that's, I think, one of the biggest things that's helped. We were talking about Jefferson Rogers, right? His company, JKR Windows. I worked there for a spell, and their approach is just awesome. I had recently just yesterday and the day prior, I had 2 door-to-door salesmen. One was selling solar and one was selling window washing. Guess which one's more applicable to me, right? The window washing is way more affordable. So, but the solar guy was so uptight and he just insisted on trying to shake my hand. And I'm like holding back a German Shepherd. I'm like, hey, I'd love to shake your hand, but I'm not. And then he took it so personal. And I was like, okay, so I had to stop him. And I said some cuss words and I was like, dude, I don't like your fucking attitude. Like I did door to door for years and like your approach is all wrong. I'm like, you just had an awkward start. I'm just going to chalk it up to a bad day for you.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm still going to let you do your pitch. And he just couldn't do it.
Man. Got rattled. Got rattled, dude.
Yep. And then the other guys, they were just so chill about it. They're like, hey, we're typical door-to-door guys. Sorry about that. We're not here to BS you. But, we do this window washing service. This is what we're here for. They got right to the point. They didn't give me some fucking spiel. They didn't try to they weren't divas about it. And I was about to say no. And then I was like, well, what's your price? So I could use a window cleaning. And then they're like, we're doing a promotion for this. And then they just got to know me. And I was like, all right, what's your real price without the promotion? They're like this. And I'm like, that's in my budget. Let's do it.
Yeah.
I'm like, I looked at them. I was like, fuck your promotion. I'm paying full price for you guys. Let's go.
Man. Yeah.
Because you guys are great.
That's good, dude.
But yeah, it's like that kind of marketing is like really hitting home with people.
I think it just it fits me. Like that's, again, I think we're all, especially people who are like entrepreneurial minded or whatever, and like seek that out. Like I'm always studying of ways of running the data, like what's performing well for us, what's not, all this kind of stuff.
Brutally honest.
Yeah. And I just
real,
and sometimes I need to like kind of put my shaders on and like put on my different glasses to look through like a different lens. Because I always look for the kind of like, I always want to like do marketing that like speaks to me. Right? When like it might not be. Like I'm sure that like that dude didn't like fit the same style of you. He comes off as really like he's the hot shot, he's the authoritative, he's the whatever dude. But
I had to tell him that.
Yeah.
I was like, dude, your pitch might be great, but it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
But like that might
two houses might be so and so's like jam, right? Like they might be like, wow, you seem like the total expert. You're super like you're very proper. You're very like I can tell this is a solid whatever, right?
You shook my hand and looked me in the eyes.
Yep, for sure. It could totally fit someone else, right? And that's where it kind of becomes like a numbers game. But again, what I always, especially in the content space, like we're talking about, and just business in general, like if you're a door-to-door guy, you're playing the numbers. Like you never know who's on the other side of the door, so you got to play the numbers. When you're in a space where you have some control over where your product and service is being marketed to, you just got to get a clear understanding of who your target market is. Right. And then you can put your resources towards that target market and create marketing and brand and message around that best affects your target market. Yeah. You're not knocking doors when you're selling stuff online. Like no. you can go specifically to your
more
target
accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
I mean, and here's the thing too, is like door to door, when you have a product that's applicable for homeowners, is amazing.
Yep.
Because, you know, there's still a lot of turning over every stone, but then you really just play the numbers. But yeah, marketing is more of like online, right? It's just casting nets, kind of, where you're just kind of sitting waiting for those nets to fill or not fill.
Yeah.
You do A/B, right? A lot.
Yeah, I'm a huge, like, I love split test stuff. And I think, I mean, we could jam about that for a minute, I'm sure. But yeah, it's just all about, like, you just don't know what you don't know until the data tells you, right?
Right.
And if you're not split testing things, then you're just wasting resources because you just don't know.
That's why I think your approach to starting a podcast, you're kind of, in a way, split testing yourself. Maybe not split testing, but you're definitely testing. You're collecting data. You're like, okay, if I do this for a year, that equal one podcast a month, that's 12 podcasts. And I can meet 12 people that can enlighten me on my show, and I have an excuse to interface and network with them. So it's like, it's already like a net gain, or it's like a profitable thing for you as far as that goes, right?
Yeah.
But that's an awesome way to look at it, dude. Is just that your marketing mindset is really, you can see it bleed over into the way you live your life after just the sit down here with this. I love it a lot, man.
I appreciate that, man.
Yeah, you can tell you're a numbers guy.
I definitely,
you're a Ravenclaw.
I'm a data person for sure. I'm horrible at math. I remember my mom, like, in middle school, I think I was getting like a D in math. And I remember that, like, my mom after school one day, like, came to pick me up and was like, we're going to talk to the teacher together. And I was like horrified. Right. And yeah, I ended up getting a different teacher. Not that it was the teacher's fault or anything, I guess. Like, I
didn't line up.
I'm a horrible student in general, to be honest. Like,
That's a good thing.
I did not do that well in college, and just in another life, I would have gone, like, I went pre-med when I was in college, and in another life, I would have definitely gone into medicine. I still love that stuff and nerd out about it. Yeah, I think it's super fascinating. Like, there was times in my life where, you know, like, everyone in bed just like scrolling their phone, like, you end up watching a YouTube video about, you know, top 10 whatever things, and then 3 hours later you're watching about the deadliest creatures in Mariana's Trench or something. You're like, how did I get here?
Yeah.
But like, that was me. I was watching like medical study things about like the nervous system and your spine and brain and all these things, and it's just super fascinating. Anyways, like yeah, I remember, like, I got a new teacher, and like I ended up, you know, getting a B. So my mom was happy with that. But I just, dude, math was a struggle, but the numbers from a data perspective, like, that's where magic happens, man. Like,
I'm very similar, and I've come to a conclusion. I think people enjoy math when it provides the answers that are practical for their interests.
So good.
Right? Like, I had zero interest in math growing up. I thought it was stupid, dumb. And then I'm sitting in a fighting hole training on how to do trigonometry to call in airstrikes and to call in mortars and artillery as a Marine infantryman. And like Marine grunts, Marine infantrymen, they'll play stupid all day. We eat the crayons. Oh yeah, it's all a facade. Like, I got guys that, like, they got super high ACT scores and, like, you know, IQs over 140. But then you have the other guys that are down, like, on the spectrum, right, that you're working with.
Yeah.
So there's a wide variety of talent and skill, but the people that are calling, you know, airstrikes and doing things like that at a what's called a JTAC, an air traffic controller joint, you know, kind of people that do that for a living, they're considering so many different things, and they're doing trigonometry while they're getting shot at. And all of a sudden, math is cool. I love that. I'm like, that's interesting. So, because I get to see a big boom boom after I get this equation right. You know?
I was going to say, it's like the principles are the same, but the application is very different.
Yeah.
Right.
So there's a huge disconnect. I'm like, why am I learning this? I didn't learn shit in school from math. I relearned it the way the military taught me because it was applicable.
Yeah.
And it was awesome.
Definitely.
And then I enjoyed it.
I had a great math teacher in college while I was there for a little bit. And the reason that he was great was on the very first day, he was like, this is not a math class. This is a problem solving class. And he's like, my goal in this class is to teach you how to problem solve. And the tool that we're going to use to teach you how to problem solve is math. And I'm like, that's such a good way to engage, you know, kids and college kids and all that. And he's like, I'll be straight with you. You are never going to be in a shopping line and need to figure out tax. It's all done for you. But my goal is, through the principles and things that I'm going to teach you through math, is when you're going through real life stuff and something's hard and you need to like solve the problem, that you'll be able to, you know, dissect the problem, see it all, like use the order of equations and stuff, or order of operations and stuff to be able to solve. Yeah, exactly. To be able, you'll be able to PEMDAS your problems in the future. But yeah, I thought it was so good.
Dude, that's genius. And looks like we're kind of going over time, but yeah, we could talk all day. I knew it. We told Mal, we're like, dude, you get Kurt and me talking, we'll just go.
We will, for sure.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be a part 2 of one of these. Eventually, we'll have you back on. We'll check in on your podcast. We'll check in on everything that's going on. We'll share, you know, maybe by then we have a podcast course going up and you got your fingerprints on it. So,
hey, man, I'm all about it, dude.
You can kind of break
that down. Can I pose
a
question?
Yeah.
Kurt, what's your favorite part about being a podcast host?
Ooh,
great question.
That is such a good question. What is my favorite part of being a podcast host? To dive into that a little bit, I'll just share a little bit more about, I guess, the reason behind why I started this particular podcast, the Built Backstory podcast. I mentioned it earlier, but like a lot of it was around like pulling the curtain back on people who have built their business, their brand, or their life, and realizing like what were the mindset and actions and crossroads and things that they did to get there. Again, I always share that story about Mike, to where it's like he went from firefighter to financially free in 5 years. And like that time's going to pass no matter what. So like your dream life is much closer. So for me, like selfishly, a huge reason that I started the podcast was to gain these experiences and interview these people who live dope lives. And I'm like, I want to align my life with them, you know, more. Or live my life in more ways that they are currently living it. And yeah, just kind of learn their secrets. Like, what were their mindsets like? What were their actions that they took? What were their failures that they took?
It's like free coaching.
Exactly. So selfishly, that's a big reason why I wanted to start it. But my favorite part of hosting it is, like, I'm probably not the best at it, but being able to like allow people their opportunity to like share that story with an audience, is just really powerful. And I try to do a decent job of like asking questions and all that kind of stuff to get them to open up. But I always focus on like, what are the principles and the applications that come from each one of their stories, so that me and the listeners and hopefully them, if they want to, you know, continue to use some of that to build them up or create more products or services or whatever, that just everyone involved can go live a more intentional life and just be happier living the life that they want to go live.
That's awesome, dude. That's super powerful to end on. And I guess that's kind of where our interests align, right? The purpose of this content factory is to teach people the nitty gritty where they can have a sustainable process to really put a podcast out there, or to optimize their content, or to get in front of a camera finally and to do these things, or start that YouTube page that you've always wanted, or a Twitch video gaming channel. Like we had some people that listen to this that have started that sense. And it's just kind of cool. It's cool to see that. And because it's rarely time consuming, like you're saying earlier at the beginning, to do this stuff. So to have a team or a process or a schedule that you follow, right, where you work this into a habit, is our goal. So that's really in line with kind of what you were talking about. It's like there's something to glean in that space of like creating an intentional process or lifestyle. And I think that's pretty awesome, dude. So,
yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Well, I think if that's cool with you, we'll wrap it up. Any other exiting words, other book recommendations you got for anybody?
I got too many book recommendations, I guess, which is funny because I still consider myself not a like good reader. Like it's hard for me to like sit down and read a book.
You don't read good?
I don't read good. But no, man, this has been a blast. I appreciate it. Yeah,
dude.
Hopefully, I mean, I feel like we probably went on a lot of tangents and stuff there, but that's part of the process, right? That's what we're choosing to do. So, we'll have to jam again and even get more into like the application and principles of content and stuff as well.
Absolutely.
But at the end of the day, man, my last thing that I just want to remind people is like, go live an intentional life, like choose what you want to go do, get really clear about what that looks like for you. And then just go chase it. Like, what's the first step? Like, do that. There's so many steps out there that cost you no money, cost you no whatever. Like just go take that first step and, see how you vibe with it, see how you like it. And if you like just start gaining momentum and traction to go take the next one and the next one and the next one. And before you know it, that life that you want to live is a lot closer than you think it is.
Beautifully said. Thanks for tuning in, guys. This has been Your Content Factory again. I think episode 15. Thanks for tuning in. But that's a great note to end on, dude. Appreciate you being on.
Appreciate it, dude.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Thanks, brother. Nice job, dude.